Welcome to Dr. Irvin's finance class. Today we are going to talk about common stock or common equity. I'm going to introduce a basic model for valuing common stocks. It is called the Gordon Growth Model. It is also called the Dividend Growth Model and various other names. I will call it the Gordon Growth Model. So let's start looking at the basic model. You can see I've got this equation right here. P0 is equal to D1 divided by 1 plus R raised to the first power plus D2 divided by 1 plus R raised to the second power, and on like that. In other words, I'm getting the present value of all the future cash flows. In this model, we assume that the future cash flows are dividends. We're going to assume that the dividends grow at a constant rate and that they will grow at this rate forever. So D1 is equal to D0 times 1 plus G, where G is the growth rate. D2 is equal to D0 times 1 plus G squared, and on like that. So you can see the pattern continues, and then I'm going to substitute it into that first equation, and I have D0 times 1 plus G to the first power divided by 1 plus R raised to the first power. And it goes on forever. It can be shown that this equation will simplify down to P0 is equal to D1 divided by R minus G. And P0 is also equal to D0 times 1 plus G divided by R minus G. D0 times 1 plus G is equal to D1. As I said, this model goes by many names. I call it the dividend growth model. You will hear people talk about the discounted dividend model or just the dividend model. These are the most commonly used names. So how does this model work? I have an example here where a stock is going to pay $2.50 next year in a dividend, and after that the dividends will grow at 6%, and they will grow at 6% forever. The required return for this particular stock is 13%. I want to know what the price is today. P0 is equal to $2.50 divided by 0.13 minus 0.06. This arithmetic gives me $35.71. So if this stock meets all of our assumptions, its price is going to be $35.71 per share. Here is an additional example. Suppose the stock just paid a dividend of $1.80, and the dividends will grow at 6% indefinitely. If the required return is 11%, what is the current stock price? I have the same model. It's D1 divided by R minus G. In this case, D1 is going to be equal to 1.80 times 1.06. Notice the difference in the wording. In the first problem, I said we'll pay a dividend of $2.50 next year. In this last one, I said a stock just paid a dividend of $1.80. Those are some clues to determine whether I've given you D1 or D0. In the first one, I gave you D1, and in the second one, I gave you D0. I can use this model to look at the stock price anytime into the future. I want to know the price in 8 years. So P8, the pattern for this model is P0 is equal to D1 divided by R minus G. So if I'm doing P8, I want D9 divided by R minus G. If D0 is equal to 1.80, D9 is equal to 1.80 times 1.06 raised to the 9th power. I divide that by 0.11 minus 0.06, and I get $60.82. Also, I can make the stock grow at a constant rate using our time value formulas, where the rate of change for the stock is going to be the growth rate. So you can see I have $38.16 times 1.06 raised to the 8th power, and I get $60.82. I can keep doing this for any year that we want to look at. P15 is going to be equal to D16 divided by R minus G. You can see how I've calculated. In addition, I can make P0 grow at 6%, and I will get the same answer. We can use this model to value other assets. Let's look at this example here. I want to buy a song catalog. The royalties next year will be $1 million. And they are expected to decrease by 8% per year indefinitely. I want a 13% return on this investment. What is the most you should pay for the catalog? In order to calculate the value of this catalog to you, I'm going to take the cash flow from next year, which is $1 million, and I'm going to divide that by our required return, and I'm going to subtract our growth rate from it. In this case, the growth rate is negative. So I have $1 million divided by 0.21. And the answer is $4,761,905. That is how you would use the Gordon growth model to complete this problem. Let's talk about the Gordon growth model now that we've used it a little bit. I have highlighted the model. What happens if R is equal to G? We end up with D1 divided by 0. We cannot do that. Division by 0 is not defined. R and G cannot be equal to each other. If G is greater than R, we end up with a negative stock price. That doesn't make sense either. We have a couple of conditions that have to be met in order to use this model. First of all, the stock has to pay a dividend. And second, the required return, or R, has to be greater than the growth rate. If those two constraints are not met, we cannot use this model. There are plenty of stocks that do not meet those criteria. Therefore, we have to value them in some other way.